So welcome everybody. This is quite exciting. I've really been looking forward to this, to the stories of Israel, and I'm really excited to be on this journey with you. I want to just begin by acknowledging that while we're gathering on Zoom this evening, that Holy Blossom is situated in Toronto, which is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Wyandotte, and Mississaugas of the New Credit, indigenous peoples who have lived on this land for thousands of years before us. And I just want to pick up one of the names of one of these peoples, the Haudenosaunee, which translates as the people of the longhouse, or a people who built a longhouse. And the longhouse is considered to be a place of gathering. It is a place of sharing stories, a place of learning and of culture and of respect. And we, the Jewish people, consider ourselves to be the people of the book. And we are gathering today online for the purpose of engagement, for the purpose of learning and growth and sharing stories. And we recognize that in a very similar way in which we feel connected to the physical land of Israel, the homeland of the Jewish people, that the indigenous communities of Canada are also in deep spiritual connection with their homeland here in this city and around the nation of Canada. So let us begin this evening with the acknowledgement that colonization is an ongoing process here in North America, with native lands still being occupied due to broken or deceptive treaties. And so we, as the relative newcomers to this land in Canada, each of us has a role in reminding ourselves and each other about the land that we inhabit here in Canada and as a Jewish people in the state of Israel. So tonight we're going to be meeting with Brhan, an Ethiopian Israeli with a fascinating story to share. And I just wanted to take a quick moment before we really dive into the heart of our program to provide some context and some thoughts. So there's been a Jewish community in Ethiopia, the Beta Yisrael, the House of Israel, which has existed for at least 15 centuries. So this is a long-standing Jewish community. Though because the Beta Yisrael's community existed in isolation from other Jewish communities around the world, they developed different customs and were really an unknown community in world Jewry until relatively recently. And so I don't want to take up too much time before we really jump in, but I do want to address that feeling of otherness or that feeling of being unknown amongst a people, amongst your own people. And so in this week's Parsha, Vayetze, we learn of the birth of Jacob's 11 sons and Jacob's one daughter, and we are familiar with the names of our matriarchs, Leah and Rachel. But we are perhaps less familiar with the names of the maidservants Bilhah and Zilpah. And Zilpah gave birth to Gad and Asher, and Bilhah gave birth to Dan and Naphtali. And these sons eventually become 4 of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so it's always bothered me that these stories of these women of Bilhah and Zilpah are widely unknown, very rarely discussed. It is touched on in the rabbinic literature, but it's not. These are not like household names. When I work with B'nai Mitzvah students, very rarely do they, when we mention Bilhah and Zilpah, do they really know who are we talking about? And that's upsetting and troubling. And I actually believe that we're making a grave mistake in not lifting up these stories. And similarly, not including the history of Ethiopian Jewish experience is an injustice to the richness of Jewish life. And life was not easy for Bilhah and Zilpah. And as we will learn, life for an Ethiopian Israeli is not always easy either. Though without these narratives, without these people, the Jewish people would be incomplete. Right, that word that we so closely associate with ourselves, shalom, and we think peace and hello and goodbye. But native Hebrew speakers will also note Shalom is shalem, or wholeness, completeness. And so we want to lift up these narratives, these perhaps less known narratives, in order for us to feel as a complete people. And we can take pride in multiculturalism and religious pluralism in the state of Israel, while also recognizing we have a lot of work to do, and that work is sacred and it serves the entirety of the Jewish people. Okay, so we are really in for a treat tonight, and for the next couple of evenings, Tuesday evenings as well. In just a moment, I want to introduce you to Rabbi Josh Weisberg, who is the director and the producer of the Stories of Israel. And Rabbi Weisberg is an Orthodox rabbi living in Israel with his wonderful wife, Jenny, who we will have an opportunity to meet together in just a couple of weeks, and together with their 8 children. And Rabbi Weisberg is no stranger to Canada. If some of you were on here a bit earlier, you heard that Rabbi is going to be in Canada next week, visiting his hometown of Kingston.
Tomorrow, actually.
Tomorrow. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, and next week. So we're so glad you're with us. And we'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself further in just a moment. But I think it's important for us to know that we're with a fellow Canadian. I'm an American, so maybe I shouldn't say fellow Canadian, but I feel it. I feel close to you and into this country. And that also that Rabbi Weisberg grew up in a Reform community in Kingston as an active member in his nifty youth group. And so we're thrilled that you're with us, and want to thank you and want to thank Brhan for waking up in the middle of the night to be with us. We really appreciate you. I also want to take a moment to thank Arnold Englander, whose generous gift of sponsorship has made this series possible. And so on behalf of Holy Blossoms community, I want to thank you and extend our appreciation for your generosity. I also want to just wrap up by thanking each and every one of you on screen. I recognize that there are many wonderful programs, many obligations in life that are competing for your time. And so thank you for taking the time to be with us and to learn with us, to grow and to hear the stories of Israel. So Rabbi, I'm going to stop speaking. I'm going to turn it over to you. We are in your hands.
Wow, thank you very, very much, Rabbi. That was beautiful, actually. Thank you. One of the benefits of doing this program is just I'm just getting to meet so many different communities, and every night we start with the Devar Torah, and I see a different insight into different communities. So thank you very much. So I'll just introduce myself briefly. My name is Josh Weisberg. I am an Orthodox rabbi and living in Jerusalem. I do have 8 kids. Sometimes I wonder how that's possible, but it's true. My oldest is 23 and the youngest is 6. And my full-time job is I teach Talmud at a women's seminary in Jerusalem called Nishmat. I do several other things as well. I'm also a chef at a restaurant called Tmol Shilshom downtown, if you've ever heard of that. And do a few other things as well. And I want to thank Les, also just a shout out Les for helping to arrange everything this evening. We've developed a bit of a friendship, being in touch back and forth on the preparations. So as the rabbi mentioned, this is for me a very special evening. I'll tell you a little bit about the program, but the Stories of Israel in general. But this is special for me. It's a bit of a homecoming. I did grow up in Kingston, Ontario. I'm flying out tomorrow on the Air Canada flight at noon from here to go visit my family. My mom still lives in Kingston. I grew up in the Ir HaMelech community. I don't know if anybody knows or remembers Ir HaMelech, which is obviously Hebrew for Kingston, Ir HaMelech. I grew up there in the 70s and 80s. I was part of Nifty, so I remember a Holy Blossom synagogue on our weekend Shabbatons coming into Toronto, and I was youth group leader in Kingston. And when I was 18, I decided to take a year off before going to university and to come and see Israel. It wasn't particularly a Zionist decision at all. My family was just what it was. We weren't particularly ideological or deeply connected to Israel. It just really was an opportunity for me to go in and learn about the world a little bit. And I had just an incredible year. I had really one of the, we all have them, just years in our lives that are very formative, that basic decisions about identity we make. And I came back, actually went to university in the States, but I found that my heart was drawing me back to Israel all the time, and came back. And thinking about this evening, preparing what to say, I was just thinking about what drew me so powerfully to Israel, what made me feel at home here, what made me really fall in love with the place was partly the vibrancy, just how energetic and dynamic. Those of you who spent time in Israel, I know, Rabbi, you spent some time in Israel, and just how alive Israel is. It's just individual people, everyone's energetic. People are in your face. People invite you home for Shabbat after arguing with you over something on a bus. It's a place of a tremendous amount of energy. There's also an incredible diversity of Jewish and also non-Jewish experience. The Israeli experience is just insanely diverse. The number of ethnic identities, both within the Jewish community and in the overall Israeli community, is incredibly intense. The number of immigrants, the number of languages is just breathtaking. And also at the very heart of all that was a feeling that even if I disagreed with just about everybody, about everything, even if people's color, people's background, people's language were different, I had a very strong, a very powerful intuitive sense at 18 that everyone's story was also my story. A little bit, Rabbi, what you mentioned in your opening words, that I would meet just the fact that everyone together might be fighting and arguing and disputing, and whether it was Jewish or whether it was Christian or whether it was Muslim, as Arab, there was a sense of some sort of a common story that was really my story. And as much as I do love going back to Canada, and we have a cottage up near Ottawa, and go up often, and we go in the summers with the kids, as much as that has remained a home for me, I think my sort of deepest home really ever since I've been 18 has been Israel. And then I came back and decided to stay. And those three things, the vibrancy, the diversity, and the sense of it being all of our story, in this case as Jews, is really what drove me to make this series of Stories of Israel. About a year ago, a very close friend of mine, who's a rabbi of a conservative synagogue in Palo Alto, right at the beginning of COVID, so his community was in lockdown, and they had to cancel a trip to Israel that they'd planned. They were going to come and spend a Shabbat dinner with our family here, the community that was coming together with there was a Baptist church in Palo Alto that was going to come with them, and it was an interfaith trip, and they were going to meet with us, and we were very excited about them. And he said, listen, we had to cancel the trip. We don't know what's going to happen with this virus, and we're all scared. But I really don't want my community to miss the opportunity to feel and taste Israel. Would you be willing, and I'd never worked in film before, he said, would you be willing to make a series of short films about different Israelis and bring them into the homes of the people in my community, because we can't come? And so I didn't hesitate. I said, sure, I'm all over this. This is great. I was also COVID here, and we were teaching on Zoom at the very beginning. And I said, sure, I'm sure I can do this. And so I hired a videographer and an editor, and we made 7 movies together, and they were all just so much fun to do. Met incredible people, about 7 very different Israelis, just coming from different parts of Israeli society, Israeli culture. We're going to meet 3 of them over the next few weeks. And as the rabbi said, if it's exciting for you and interesting and you would like more, we made a total of 7. I'm now in the process of making a new series. The 3 Israelis whom we're going to meet together this time are Brhan, whom we'll meet in a minute, young woman of Ethiopian family, also a former student of mine at the seminary, a Talmud student of mine, and very fond of Brhan, and was so impressed, so incredibly impressed with her as a student, and just knew how much warmth and how articulate and how intelligent and how thoughtful Brhan is. I knew that she would make a fantastic topic, and I went and visited and spent some time with her family in Ashdod, whom you'll meet. We're going to meet with Rabbi Tamir Nir, who's a very close friend of mine. He's a Reform rabbi here in Israel. He lives across the train tracks, literally, from us in Jerusalem. I live in an Orthodox neighborhood by the entrance to the city. And Rabbi Tamir lives in Beit HaKerem. He has a Reform synagogue in Beit Kerem. And Tamir, his father is from where Abraham is from, Or Kasdim in southern Iraq, and his mother is Yemenite. And he grew up here as an Orthodox Jew in Israel. And over his life, went through a transformation that was similar to mine, just the opposite direction in terms of religious affiliation, that he went from being an Orthodox young man around the same time, we're about the same age, to he left that side of his tradition and embraced a Reform tradition. And about this, a little bit later, after I started becoming an Orthodox rabbi, he decided to become a Reform rabbi. And so the two of us have a little speaking tour here in Israel. We speak about our own identities and the changes in the spiritual growth, and sort of embracing this idea of choosing one's own religious destiny. We're going to meet with Rabbi Tamir Nir next week. And in the third week, we're going to meet a very wonderful woman, also whom I'm married to, Jenny, who tells her own story of growing up in the United States and doing some research work in Indonesia, and making some very close Muslim friends in Indonesia. And through their own sense of tradition and identity and religious growth, discovering her own Jewish identity in a deeper way than she had before, and coming to Israel. Those are the three. There's several other characters. There's Olivier, brother Olivier, who I was just in touch with today, who's a Catholic monk, French Catholic monk, an Israeli citizen who lives just outside of Jerusalem. Incredibly interesting man. And Ilan Scheinfeld, who's a best-selling Israeli novelist and poet, who's gay and the single father of two children whom he had through surrogacy, and writes primarily about Jewish religious themes, mystical themes in his writing. And all of these characters, among several others, are people who hold within them different complexities, nuances, layers of identity that they're very proud of, and not in any way interested in hiding, not interested in brushing over or denying the complexities and sometimes the contradictions in identity. Something that I like very much personally about my own life and about Israel is just the willingness to confront complexity and not to hide from it. So without saying much more, I'm just going to mention that in order to make the movie with Brhan, I went down with my friend who did the filming for the actual filming, the videographer, visit her incredibly interesting family in Ashdod, and spent some time there, went again before Pesach, and spent some time learning about Passover traditions with Brhan. And so I'm sure you're going to have a wonderful evening. We're going to show a film every night. It's, between tonight is the shorter film. It's about 9 minutes. The others will be about 15. And then afterwards, you'll get a chance to interview and to ask questions, Q&A, anything you like about the people in the film or myself. So thank you very, very much for the opportunity. It's a bit of a homecoming, and I'm looking forward to going through this journey together with you for the next few weeks.
Thank you so much. So I'll just invite everyone, if you have questions as they come up, we are going to have a section where we'll have a Q&A, but as they come up, you can always pose them in the chat box. We'll see them, we'll note them, we'll do our best not to respond to them directly in the chat box. But if you've had any questions for Brhan or for Rabbi Weisberg, there's no time frame. You can always post in the chat. Okay, so let me share my screen now. I'm going to just ask everyone to please remain muted, and we can watch together.
So my dad was a farmer. He was keeping the cows and the sheep. And my mom, she was in the kitchen. She was cooking. She was making the clothes. She brought the water from a far, far away place, from the river. I was born, and they called me the Dawn because I was born in the morning. Also, like my dad tells me that when I was born, everything started to be good. They got more like food and money for survive, and they moved to Israel more quickly. And then we moved to Jerusalem.
So you were the Don of the family.
Kind of. My mom and my dad didn't like live at the same place. For my dad, it was like a journey to find her, because my dad all the time tell me that he went 3 days to search Jew women and also a non-family, because in Ethiopian community you can't marry someone that is your family for 7 generations.
Wow.
Yeah, so you're going back, and you need to search. It's not your family, and she's also Jew.
And then they met, and then, and could she say no if she wanted?
No.
She can't say no.
No, she can't. Ethiopia, there's no chance that you more than your parents. You have to obey to them. You have to do everything that they asking from you, and immediately. We call coffee Buna. It's not just coffee. It's a time that the whole family sits together and share experiences from the day. And then everyone blesses the person who prepared the coffee. In the village, when like the father comes to the house from the field, when he was working, he ate first, and what the remains of the kids were eating, because you're giving a respect to the parents. My dad told me that he used to hold the candles to my parents when they eat dinner. You move to a new country, it's very hard. The language and how to raise the kid, and the kids know more than you. You don't have the authority to do something, it's just like less than your kids. Everything is like breaking. When I was like in the 1st grade, my dad put all the books in my bag. He said to me, I don't know to read and you don't know either. It was really heavy. And the teacher said, no, why did you read all of this? And I was like, I don't know. My mom doesn't know, my dad doesn't know, we don't know. And my dad started a new work, and the manager thought like, oh, he's an Ethiopian, he's new here, he doesn't know Hebrew, I can pay him whatever I want. And he didn't pay him right as the law. My dad is a fighter. He went to the court and sued him, and he won. But it's like all the time like fighting, you know. When my parents came, I remember myself like they had a lot of problem with issues with Hebrew and how to explain themselves. Everything that's like more, you need to go to the doctor, I need to explain in Hebrew, but sometimes I didn't know like to explain. Also they brought me a document when I was 6th grade, and they brought me documents, like a government document.
Right.
The kids in my age did not supposed to know this. I'm supposed to be outside having fun, or like, I don't know, watching TV or read book, but I'm helping my parents in things that I don't know either, but they don't have other people to ask. It's brought to a situation that the kids has like more like power than the parents. Like my cousin used to tell me that the teacher said he doesn't behave good, he needs to do the homework, and he was translating to his dad, I'm good, the teacher says I'm fine. So this is a funny joke, but there's like...
But there's something bitter behind it, yeah.
Also, I've been changing, like give a respect to my parents, but I think like the Israeli rude, it's affect me. So sometimes I said to him, no, I don't have strength, I'm tired. Vamos. So most of my neighbors are Russian. They taught me like numbers in Russian. I was growing up with the Russian people, with Moroccan people, Iran people, India people. It was natural. And they had like a flat head. I thought like this is beautiful.
How do you flatten your hair?
With the iron flat. Also chemicals. When you're fighting with kids, you just like, they call you a kushibamba. It's like a nigger. And I call them hummus because I want to like to laugh about their skin too. Your hair, it's frizzy. when like it's happening like a lot of protests because Ethiopian kids getting killed because the police. So I feel like not part of Israel at all. Like I don't want to stay here. I don't want to be here. I don't feel like I'm part of something, even if it's not like related to me, but it's happened to someone else. It can happen to my brother. It can happen to my dad. It can happen to the kids. I felt like a lot of people do not understand where the depression came from. Like people saying you, oh, you're just all the time crying, stop being crying. It also happens to the Moroccans, the Yemen people. Don't have to cry about this, moving on. I was reading a lot of comments about the protest and the riot, and I felt a lot of hate. When I was in the USA, the summer camp, I felt the most Israeli ever, and they didn't care about my color or where I came from. Like I feel like, okay, this is a kibbutz galuyot, and this is home because there is not like a specific Israeli, because everyone came from other culture, everybody came from other countries. So like when everybody together, it's more hard because you have more differences. It's more easy because you can feel like yourself because everybody's different. You're not the only one that's different, for the bad and for the good. Judaism for me, it's like to find the path that it's never end between the Ethiopian Judaism and the halacha that we have here.
And knowing that you are more powerful with your roots than without them.
Okay. So thank you. Really, I'll be honest, I've watched it like 4 times today. And so really, really moving. So Brhan, I think what we'd love to hear from you, and we can bring you on and hear from a little bit from you. And again, just a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions, please don't be shy, and you can post them in the chat. If you'd like to ask a question anonymously and not have your name attached to it, you could also send me a direct message rather than posting in the chat, and I can ask on your behalf. So without any further ado, good morning, Brhan. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning to you also, Rabbi, and thank you for welcoming me here. This your evening and my morning. If you have some questions, feel free to ask. You can ask everything, and I will answer as far as I know. I can tell about myself. Today I'm 23. I'm a student in Ben Gurion University. I'm learning hospitality and tourism management, and I'm working also in the Norman Hotel and in the Nishmat, the seminary that me and Joshua, Rav Joshua, we've met. Feel free to ask questions.
I got some questions, and Rabbi, you might have some questions too. Here, how do I do this? If I can, I'm going to remove the spotlight actually, and we can be in gallery view. So, Brhan, you said in the video that you, after you were born, that you quickly moved to Israel. So you were born in Ethiopia, and what age were you when you moved to Israel?
So we moved when I was 6 months, and we moved directly to Jerusalem, and then we moved to Ashdod.
So when did you move to Ashdod?
When I was in 2 years, 2 years old, and then we moved to Ashdod.
Fantastic. And do you have, okay, let's begin some questions. Where did you learn your English?
So basically I practice my English. Um, I just practice that all the time since the summer camp, and also I I was living with an American friends in the seminary, and like all the time I practice that.
Amazing.
I just have to point out how amazing that actually is. I mean, Brhan didn't study English in particular, meaning in high school, it's not necessarily a great English language program. And her English, which is so extraordinary, is just from that summer camp in the States, and then just having friends here and speaking. I just am, every time I'm blown away by how quickly and how well she's learning English.
It's amazing. I've been like studying Hebrew for, I don't know, 10 years, and like I still sound like I'm in first grade. So
It's just a matter of practice.
That's right. Did I hear that you have some kids?
No,
No.
she was my sister. She's my sister. We're 6 siblings. I'm the older one. And after me, my sister Netzanet, she's in college right now. And after that, Tion, he's in Mechina, just like a pre school for the army. Then my brother Sail, and then my brother Raviv, and then the younger one Loza. She's the baby.
And how old is the baby?
This week she's gonna be today. She's 2 years.
Oh, happy birthday. That's fun.
Yeah, apparently today, the 10th.
Fantastic. So one of the, and I call it heart-wrenching, but one of the heart-wrenching moments in the video is to hear you say that you just really don't feel like you're a part of Israel. And so a handsome gentleman by the name of Bobby Goodman asked, do you feel included now? Do you feel a part of Israel now?
So yes, because I feel like there is more awareness about what the Jewish community, the Ethiopian Jewish community feeling here. But still there's like some gaps, cultural gaps between me and the Israeli society. I can tell that sometimes I have a racism occasions, and then I feel like I'm not part of the Israel society. But like in general, I want to believe and I want to be positive that I do, and I feel part of the Israeli community.
And so what are some of the ways in which, so you mentioned coffee, and what are some of the ways that you feel culturally that you're a part of two cultures? There's Israeli culture, and what are the ways in which you feel that you've been able to hold on, or if you've been able to hold on to the Ethiopian culture as well?
So
also, Brhan, just to add to the rabbi's question, I just knowing from conversations with you about the process, your own process and your relationship to your Ethiopian heritage as you grew up, if you don't mind telling us again about that. I just find that so interesting about as you grew up, how your attitude towards your own heritage changed.
Okay, so basically when I grew up here, I felt like I need to deny my culture, my Ethiopian culture, because like I want to be part of the Israeli society. And if someone like talked to me in Amharic, I was very shy, and I didn't want to invite someone to my home so they would not see the Ethiopian food that we had. And also like I was really shy of my culture, and also like because I know more Hebrew than my parents, I felt like that I'm more good than them, but not really. I can tell a story that when I was in my national service, I didn't do army. I did the national service instead. There is a thing in the Ethiopian culture that's called the respect, and you have to respect your parents. You have to respect the people that older than you, and when we moved to Israel and when I grew up, I felt that I know more Hebrew than my parents. So therefore, I'm better than my parents because I help them in everything, almost in everything. And in my national service, I broke my leg and I called to my dad and I told him, Dad, I broke my leg. And I went to the doctor and the doctor said, nah, your leg is okay. You don't need something to do. And I didn't understand why I felt cold in my leg. And I called to my dad and I told him, Dad, my leg is cold. And he told me, if your leg is cold, it means that you broke your leg. And I was like, no, the doctor said that I didn't break my leg. Like, I know better. The doctors know better. So I guess he's right, not you. And I didn't tell him that. I just thought that in mind. And then we moved to other doctor. Like I went to other doctor, and the same thing. The doctor said that I didn't break my leg and my leg is okay. And my dad continued and consist that I broke my leg. And then we moved to the third doctor, and the third doctor said, Brhan, you broke your leg. And my dad was right. And then that day I cried, not because I broke my leg, also because I broke my leg, because it was hurt, yes. But I cried because I thought, I'm not better than my parents. I'm not better than what my father said, and I should listen to him. And if I listen to him, like I would get a medical care earlier. And like that feeling that the Western culture brings the you in the middle and that's for you, and you don't think and you don't listen to your parents than what we had in Ethiopia. Um, so this is like one of the things that changing. Also, like I can tell about like when you want to be an Israeli, so I can tell that my second year when I was in the second year when I was in second grade in Israel, my teacher wanted to change my name. She told me, oh, like she read all the list of the names, and in front of all the class, she told me, oh, Brhan, what does it mean, Brhan? So I told her that it means bless and John and all of that, and she was like, oh, but it's not in Hebrew name. We should change your name. And in that second, I was like, whoa, what, like why she stopped in my name and in front of all of the class wanted to change my name. And like all the kids looking at me like you need to make a decision. You need to give her an answer. And I was so stressed because I thought she's gonna punish me. She's gonna lift me in the class after school. She's gonna, I don't know, bring me 30 pages in math to solve. And I was so stressed. I didn't know what to do. And all the kids looking at me, and I felt so ashamed because if the teacher stops the lesson because of me, it means that my name is not good. So why my parents gave me that name? And all of that, like you think in seconds. And eventually I told her, I don't want to change my name. I don't know how did I say that, but like this is like the thing that you struggle since I was a kid until today. And yes, if you have more questions.
I've got so many more, so I'll keep asking, but please, I encourage everyone else to keep writing in the chat as well. So, and I'm just like I'm fascinated by your parents as well. So I'm wondering if do you have like certain expectations from your parents' generation that are would be different than another Israeli?
Wow, that's a good question. For years, I thought they should be like they adopt the Western culture and the Israeli culture, like they adopted that, but half. And I was angry on them, like, why you can be normal Israeli, like why you can adopt the language, the culture, stop being so embarrassing and when we're going out. But then I I understand that this is what they are, like this is what they they grew up, and I can't change them. Just a second. Just a second. I'm just moving for other place. Just a second.
Like it's 2 a.m. You're talking loudly.
I just woke up my roommate, so I just like moved to other place.
Okay. You can blame it on Rabbi Goodman. We're like in the heart of a really good answer, so I don't want to. I'm not going to fill the silence. Oh, bro, if you're speaking, you're still muted.
No, no, I'm not speaking. Just a
Okay.
second.
Sure. So, Rabbi, as we're waiting, tell us, what are you looking forward to about your trip to Kingston?
Well, like everybody, I was grounded for about 2 years because of COVID. I always go to visit. My mom's in Kingston. My dad lives out in BC, and so I was able to make it to Kingston and to the cottage in the summer, but not to see my dad out in BC. So I'm flying out tomorrow to Victoria. Anyone who knows, it's a very long flight, but just looking forward to seeing family mostly. That's the,
Return.
nobody's getting younger, and it's just really important that they haven't been here to see the grandkids in 2 years. It's been a long time.
The whole family's coming to Kingston. The whole family's coming.
No, I'm going on my own this time, and I'll be but both my parents are going to come. Hopefully, if everything with COVID continues to settle down, then they'll be here in the spring. But I really wanted to see everybody.
Great. Okay. Brhan, we're back. We were talking about cultural expectations on you and family. And go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so I can give, for example, that for years I didn't understand like why my mom gives for my dad food, because for me, like for in the Western culture and feminism and all of that, so my dad should bring to my mom also food, like to serve her when she's coming from work, and or when he's coming from work, or like, what is your problem? Why you can't bring her food? Why you can't like serve her? And for years I didn't understand that. And when I realized that this is the way my mom expressed love to my dad, this is the way she's giving him an honor. So this is when I just relaxed and like went back, and I understand that I can learn from my culture, and I don't need to change them. So this is like one of the examples. Yes.
And I'm only asking this because you said there's nothing off limits. So
Yeah. Go ahead.
also
Feel free.
wondering about the dating life and how your dad went on this 3-day journey, and your mom didn't have an opportunity to say no. And so do you feel pressure to date Ethiopian people only? Open-ended question. What is it like dating as Brhan in Israel?
Okay, so basically, first, it's complex and it's complicated. So I can tell that you can date, as I mentioned in the video, you can date with someone that is 7 generations back, your family. So like, if my grandfather and your like, and someone that I'm dating with is his grandfather. We're siblings, so we can't go out. So in Ethiopia, it was 7 generations, and when we moved into Israel, like the whole younger Ethiopian, they complained because we can't keep 7 generations. It's so far and so hard to find someone, an Ethiopian guy. So we moved. So we moved to 5 generations. So if I'm dating with someone that is in the Ethiopian Jew and he's 5 generations back, my family, I can't date with him. So it happened to me. I was dating with someone and it was really good and it was really nice. And I asked my dad and I told him about him. And he said, well, just a second. What's the names of his parents? And I tell him X and Y. And what's the name of his grandparents? And Y and Z and all of that. And he said, oh, no. You have to break out. You have to break with them. You can't. I was like, why, Dad? Like in the Torah, it's okay. You can marry someone that is your family. It's not an obligatory from the Torah, from the halacha. And he said, no. In our culture, you can't do that. And I listened to my parents painfully, and I broke up. It's really hard. It's really hard to maintain that in Israel because I know that if you are married to someone that is your family, you can end up that in the wedding your parents will not come. This is how much is severe is because like this is the customs of our culture that we did back then in Ethiopia, and the parents and the elders want to keep it. So this is one of the things, but also like when you're dating a non-Ethiopian guy, for my parents it's a little bit complicated because they want that I will bring an Ethiopian guy, but like because they have been through so much racism and discrimination in Israel, so they want someone that close to their culture, but they don't mind enough if I will end up with a married to a non-Ethiopian guy. So this is it. This is how much it's complicated.
Wow. Good. Good luck.
Tada.
Here's a good question from Les about religious practices and how or if your religious practices differ from other Israelis.
Yes, I can tell that it's for example, the Torah, like the Orit, we call it the Orit. We're not reading this every Monday and Thursday. We reading this only like in important occasions like Yom Kippur, like Passover. Like you not put it because of the mind that you give respect to the Orit, the book, and because you give the book respect, you can't just put it out every like twice a week. So you give the book respect, because if you given the book respect also, the kes, it's like the leader and the rabbi of the Ethiopian community is reading all the Torah. Like if we put in this out and we start and we chose to read the Torah, so we read all of that. So this is like one of the examples. I can say that also like the bread, it's different. The double, it's different. What else? I don't have right now in my mind.
So maybe I have like lots of pointed questions about really, but I think I'm more interested. We don't want you to speak on behalf of all Ethiopian Israelis, but you as an individual, right? So, do you feel close or an importance of, let's just last week with Sieg? Do you feel what's your feeling to like the like truly Israeli like national holidays, right? So maybe you can speak to some of those like holiday customs.
So I feel connected to this holiday because me and my dad are going every year to Armon Nativ. If you are in Israel, guys, I invited you, and then we can drink buna in my house at Ashdod or Jerusalem. Feel free to come over. So I feel really connected to this holiday, and also I believe as we celebrated the Mimuna, do you know the Moroccan holiday after Passover, with the mufleta and all of their food and customs. So I believe that this is also need to be a national holiday, that it's related to all the Israelis and all the Jewish around the world, and not just my holiday, because this day is like the purpose of this day is the reconnection of Hashem and Am Israel. And this is celebrated 50 days after Yom Kippur. So it's like a cheshbon nefesh, like you're 50 days after Yom Kippur. What are you up to? Did you remember that you promised to yourself at Yom Kippur some things like I'm going to be a better person, I'm going to listen more to my parents, and that I'm going to keep Shabbat. I don't know. So now you're 50 days after Yom Kippur. Do you still maintain what you promised to yourself? So this is the whole day. It's like for a cheshbon nefesh. We at the first part of the day we are fasting and praying that to all of Israel, and back then in Ethiopia we prayed, and we pray that we're going to be in Israel, and we're going to be together with all the other Jewish in Israel. And also the Kessim and the rabbi called read the Ezra and Nehemiah books, and also this is what we're doing here in Israel. So like I feel really connected to this holiday, and this is important to me.
I love it. Okay, I have two more questions, and then we'll let you go back to sleep. So one is, what's behind you? What's this picture?
Oh, so the picture of the journey of the Ethiopian community, like it's example for two people that moved from Ethiopia to Sudan, and from Sudan to Israel.
Thank you. And then you also just mentioned like a couple of different foods, and I'm a big fan of Ethiopian food. I love. I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce it right. The begwat, the lamb curry with injera. So what?
Yes.
So wondering, what is your favorite Ethiopian food, and what is your favorite like classically Israeli food? Knowing that there's a chef on the line with us who works at my favorite.
I hope he will not be disappointed, because I love classic Israeli food. Falafel, it's my favorite. I hope that is yours also. And also dal sauce. It means wow, I forgot that. Like it's with injera. And also when you are here in Israel, you can come over to my house, drink with me coffee, and eat with me injera. Injera, it's like the bread. It's like a spongy bread that you eat with the sauce. It's really delicious and tasty and super healthy. Yeah, so this is my favorite food.
Love it. Okay, last question that we're asked from the chat is from Dorothy. What do you have your career plans? I know you said what you were doing for university, but what's your career plans?
So basically, it's to work with the Yadut Tfutzot, to work with the Jewish all around the world. And also my biggest dream is to do a lecture in TEDx. This is like my biggest dream. I'm going to fulfill that. I just need to find a way. And it also works in hospitality, in hotels. Like I have several plans.
Amazing.
Rabbi, I just want to say that as soon as we had planned a really great trip for Brhan in the fall to go, a lot of communities that saw Brhan, met Brhan over Zoom, invited her to come to their communities and to sort of run a big Ethiopian feast in the synagogue. Everyone was assuming that in the fall over Sukkot that it would be possible to travel. And unfortunately, that all fell through because there was the Delta variant. But if the synagogue is planning a trip to Israel at any point, then I knowing Brhan's family, I'm sure that they'll love to meet you, and she and her mom will prepare all the traditional foods for you. You can make it a stop on your trip next time Holy Blossom comes here.
We have 2 trips planned, actually, my shameless plugs. One, unfortunately, you're not invited to. It's for the teens. So this March, we're bringing a group of high school students to Israel, and then this summer, June, the date, I think June 22nd is the first date. Don't quote me on that. It's June 20th, something. It's a week in Jaffa.
Wow.
Entirely in Jaffa, 1 week, and it's going to be really, really special. So I'll share more about that as the weeks go on. But to bring us to a close, Brhan, I heard that perhaps you have a thing to share.
Yes.
Is that accurate? So
Yes.
let me just say thank you. I want to give you the last word. And so we'll say thank you, and you can bring us to a close however you would like.
So do you see what I shared?
Yes, and I'm gonna just
So
Yeah,
do
we
you know
can.
do you know guys the song Kol Haolam Kulo? I think you know this. Thumb ups if you know.
Yeah,
Great.
sure.
So I'm gonna teach you this in Amharic, and you can join to me. Like I'm gonna do also the movements. It's really easy. Don't be scared, okay? So 3, 2, 1, go. Alam bemulu dil dil terbab no dil dil terbab no dil dil terbab no alam bemulu dil dil terbab no dil dil terbab no. Hey, 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 hey. Wanau nega, wanau nega, ale mefat no. Wanau nega, ale mefat no. It was easy, right? So let's do this again. Let's do this again with all the movements. I want to see you guys. Okay. Alem bemulu. Dil dil terbab no. Dil dil terbab no. Dil dil terbab no. Alem bemulu. Dil dil terbab no. Dil dil terbab no. Hey, 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 hey. Wanau nega, wanau nega. Ale mefat, wanau nega, ale mefat no. So I just want to end it and thank you that you welcomed me, and I'm welcoming you in my house when you're going to travel to Israel. Ezrat Hashem, I'm going to bless you in Amharic as we bless in the Buna ceremony. The coffee ceremony that we drink. እግዚአብሔር ይባርካችሁ ጤና ይስጣችሁ እና ከሆነው ተቆሻሻው ጥላው እና በሙላው ደስታ ይስጣችሁ. And it's funny, I don't know if I curse you or not. I'm joking. I just blessed you, I promise. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was really special here. I can do the remove spotlight. Really special to be with you and to be with Rabbi Weisberg. So listen, we're probably going to take you up on this. So one of us is going to come have coffee with you. We
Full
can't.
free.
So thank you so much. Please apologize to your roommate for us. But it's to our great benefit that you woke them up. So we appreciate you. And this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rabbi, as well. And another
Thank you, everybody, for
Yes.
the opportunity. It's really been wonderful. And Brhan, it's always just such a pleasure to just see how talented you are and just to hear your story. It's fantastic. And just to remind that next week at this time, we're going to be meeting with Rabbi Tamir Nir, also just the same kind of warmth as Brhan, and just incredibly interesting person who lives all the conflicts of Israeli society, embraces them, lives them, struggles with them. And today he was also the vice mayor of Jerusalem for a period. So he's very familiar with the political complexity of Israel and the religious and the ethnic and the Sephardi Ashkenazi. So he's going to speak about all those things next week.
Amazing. So we'll say, I believe we can say Laila Tov to all of us, whether you're in Israel or you're here in Toronto. And we'll see you same time next week. Okay, everyone, take care.
Laila Tov.
Bye. Laila Tov. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you.